Famous people who passed away in 1736. This is the second part. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Daniel Gabriel Farinheight. He was born in May 1686 and he died in September 1736. His age was 50 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Daniel Gabriel was a physicist, inventor, and scientific instrument maker born in Poland to a family of German extraction. Farinheight invented thermometers accurate and consistent enough to allow the comparison of temperature measurements between different observers using different instruments. He is also credited with inventing mercury in glass thermometers, more accurate and superior to spirit-filled thermometers at the time. The popularity of his thermometers led to the widespread adoption of his Fahrenheit scale attached to his instruments. He came up with the idea that mercury boils around 300 degrees on this temperature scale. Work by others showed that water boils about 180 degrees above its freezing point. The Fahrenheit scale later was redefined to make the freezing to boiling interval exactly 180 degrees. George Clark. He was born in May 1661 and he died in October 1736. His age was 75 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. George Clark was an English politician and colonial administrator who played a prominent role in governing New York, later contributed to British parliamentary affairs. He sat in the English and British House of Commons between 1702 and 1736. Clark was returned as Member of Parliament for Winchelsea at the 1702 English general election, coinciding with his office as Joint Secretary of the Admiralty. At the 1705 English general election, he was returned as Member of Parliament for East Loo. He was not nominated for a seat at the 1708 British general election. He was returned in a by-election on 29 May 1711 as Member of Parliament for Launceston from 1711. He did not stand at the 1713 British general election. Over the latter period, he was Lord Commissioner of the Admiralty from 20th December 1710 until 14th October 1714, when he was dismissed following the accession of George I. Louis-Antoine de Pardillon de Gourda. He was born in September 1664 and he died in November 1736. His age was 72 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Louis was a French nobleman and courtier who rose to prominence during the reigns of Louis XIV and Louis XV, serving in influential capacities. He was carefully raised by his father at the Château de Bonnefond in Gascony with his older sister Marie-Christine. He came to the court in 1683, then set out on a military career, with his father gaining him a commission as lieutenant. Thanks to his 1686 marriage, he was able to enter the circle of the Grand Dauphin. He was also an ally of his half-brothers, the Duke of Maine and the Count of Toulouse, legitimized bastard children of Madame de Montespan and Louis XIV. However, despite his best efforts, he was unable to win the king's favor, and after he made an error in maneuvering his troops at the Battle of Ramillies, he was even dismissed from the army in 1707. Antonio Kalara. He was born in 1670 and he died in December 1736. His age was 66 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Antonio was an Italian composer whose works contributed significantly to Baroque opera and church music, leaving a rich legacy of vocal compositions. He became a chorister at St. Mark's in Venice, where he learned several instruments. Probably under the instruction of Giovanni Lagorenzi. In 1699, he relocated to Mantua, where he became Maestro di Cappella to the inept Charles IV, Duke of Mantua, a pensionary of France with French wife who took the French side in the War of Spanish Succession. Kalara removed from Mantua in 1707 after the French were expelled from Italy, then moved to Barcelona as chamber composer to Charles III, the pretender to the Spanish throne, following the death of Charles II of Spain in 1700 without any direct heir, and who kept a royal court at Barcelona. There he wrote some operas that are the first Italian operas performed in Spain. Antonina Hreen. She was born in May 1686 and she died in December 1736. Her age was 50 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a Dutch engraver whose delicate and detailed portrait works earned her recognition in the art world, continuing her family's artistic legacy. She was the daughter of painter and writer Arnold Hreen and sister of the paint maker Jacob Hreen. It is assumed she learned to draw in her father's workshop. She married Jacobus Stellingwerf in May 1723. Her husband was a draftsman who provided topographical drawings to Bravarius van Nydek, a lawyer who was undertaking a project to map the entire Dutch Republic. For this purpose, he collected topographical drawings. Stellingwerf also made topographical drawings for the albums of Andries and Gerrit Shoemaker, collectors of topographical prints and drawings. Antonia made a large proportion of the drawings for Shoemaker. Antonio Manuel de Vienna. He was born in May 1663 and he died in December 1736. His age was 73 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Antonio was a Portuguese nobleman who served as Grand Master of the Knights of Malta, remembered for his contributions to Malta's fortifications and cultural heritage. He was born in Lisbon on 28 May 1663 to the aristocrat and General Dom Sancho Manuel de Vilhena, first Count de Villaflor, and his first wife, Ana Gironella. His father fought in wars in Central Europe, in Brazil against the Dutch, and in the Portuguese Restoration War against the Spanish crown. He was also a remote descendant by one of his direct paternal branches of the noble and royal Castilian house of Manuel de Vienna. He was a remote uncle of Duke of Terceira. He was elected Grand Master on 19 June 1722, 3 days after the death of his predecessor, Marcantonio Zondadari. On 20th September 1722, he took possession of the city of Medina. Louise Dan Darkon. She was born in June 1716 and she died in September 1736. Her age was 20 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was complications from childbirth. She was a French duchess, known for her royal lineage, and her ultimately death shortly after giving birth to her only child. She was a princess of Conti from her marriage to Prince Louis François in 1732 until her death in childbirth. She was the youngest child of Philippe II, Duke of Orleans, and François Marie de Bourbon, the youngest legitimized daughter of King Louis XIV of France and his mistress, Madame de Montespan. She was born while her father was the regent of Louis XV. Some sources referred to her as Louisiana. Louis, who grew up with her older sister Elizabeth, received a religious education. Her sister would later become the Queen of Spain as the wife of Louis I of Spain. Louise grew up in an era when her father, known as Philippe d'Orléans, or simply Le Regent, was the de facto ruler of France. Anna Constanze, she was born in 1667 and she died in October 1736. Her age was 69 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. Anna was a Norwegian folk hero celebrated for her bravery and patriotism during the Great Northern War, earning a lasting place in national history. Anna became known for her role in the skirmish of Norderhof between Norwegian, Danish, and Swedish forces on 29 March 1716. During the Swedish siege of Akershus fortress in Oslo in 1716, Charles XII of Sweden sent 600 soldiers under Axel Loven to investigate whether they could surround the Norwegian defenses. The Swedish troops had taken shelter in and by the old Norderhof rectory. Anna received them friendly and kept them busy while she sent her son-in-law with a message to a nearby camp with 200 Norwegian soldiers. The Swedish force was taken by surprise and 130 of them captured. Reportedly, she ordered the Norwegians to the presence of the troops of Charles XII of Sweden in the churchyard at Norderhof. John Porteous, he was born in 1695 and he died in September 1736. His age was 41 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was execution. John was a Scottish soldier whose role in suppressing a riot led to his infamous execution by a mob, a pivotal event in 18th century Edinburgh history. Little is known of his early life except that he soon found he was not suited to his father's calling. Having served in the Scots Brigade in the Dutch Republic in 1716, he became drill master to the Edinburgh force in anticipation of a Jacobite rising, and 2 years later was appointed as ensign to the city guard and was promoted in 1726 to the rank of captain. He seems to have been an overbearing official, despised by the mob and the underclasses of Edinburgh society. In 1724, he lost a wager of 20 guineas in playing a game of golf on Leith Links against Alexander Elphinstone, the brother of Lord Balmerino. The wager attracted a small crowd including the Duke of Hamilton and George Douglas. Sir William Robinson, 1st Baronet, he was born in November 1655 and he died in December 1736. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Sir William was an English Whig politician who sat in the English and British House of Commons between 1689 and 1722. He was Lord Mayor of York from 1700 to 1701. Robinson was the eldest son of Thomas Robinson of York, a Turkey merchant, by his wife Elizabeth. Tancred, daughter of Charles Tancred of Arden, Yorkshire. He was descended from a wealthy York merchant, also called William Robinson, who had been Lord Mayor of York and its Member Parliament during the reign of Elizabeth I. Robinson was educated at York under Mr. Langley and was admitted at St. John's College, Cambridge, on 6 February 1671. In 1674, he was admitted at Gray's Inn. He succeeded his father in 1676. He married Mary Isleby, daughter of George Isleby of Studley, Royal Yorkshire, in September 1679. He was captain of Bulmer Troop. Chen Shu, she was born in 1660 and she died in January 1736. Her age was 76 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. Chen Xu was a female Chinese painter during the early Qin dynasty. She was born in Suzhou and was also known by the courtesy name Nanlu and her literary names Yuan Dizzy and Nanlu Lauren. She is considered the first female painter of Qin dynasty as well as inaugurator of Xushui school painting style. Apart from her artistic works, she was also known as the mother of Qing statesman and poet Qian Changgun. After the early death of her husband, Qian raised her son by herself. When the latter became a prominent statesman in the court of Qianlong Emperor, he introduced the emperor to his mother's paintings. Through this avenue, she became favored by Qianlong, and many of her works were featured in the imperial collection. Qian painted figures, landscapes, and flowers and birds paintings. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.